and gentlemen, after a 6 month hiatus, Kill the Clock is back. Hello again, friends. Welcome to Kill the Clock. I'm Shahin Quigani. I'm here with
Revenue Singh.
what's up, Rav? I'm pretty sure the last pod we did was talking about the season just beginning in the NBA, and here we are, 6 months later, and we're gonna talk about the first round of the playoffs and recap the regular season. Not really. We're just gonna talk about the awards. But how you doing?
I'm doing good. I felt like we did such a good job on that first podcast. We really didn't need to do another one until now.
Yeah, I mean, I thought we did such a thorough job talking about the season, predicting everything that was going to happen. Not really. That, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So here we are. The season's over. It was one of the best seasons, honestly, that I've ever seen. Um, I was just starting to complain about how the NBA was getting dull, and then we had a season like this with like an MVP race that I couldn't decide on for the longest time. And let's just start with the awards. Let's start with six man. Who's your six man of the year?
Kind of biased because Isaiah Thomas is probably one of my favorite players in the league, but I think he deserves to win this award because he made the Celtics into the playoffs, and he was the leading scorer for them. I know the common answer is probably Lou Williams, and he's been maybe more consistent throughout the year. But I got to go Isaiah Thomas because of what he did to that Celtics team.
That's a fair answer. I feel like Isaiah Thomas will probably win this award next year. But for this season, I feel like Lou Williams throughout the whole season. The guard play for the Raptors has really been a huge reason why their offensive efficiency is so high. Him coming off the bench and giving them about 20 points a game, shooting the ball sort of well, and but doing very well off a pick and roll. He's ranked very high off pick and roll situations like per possession. So Lou Williams was more consistent this year, but I totally expect Isaiah Thomas to win next year, and maybe for many years to come, because he's just that kind of spark plug off the bench.
What about Jamal Crawford? Would you put him in the conversation at all, or would you rank Isaiah above him or lower?
I'd rank Isaiah over him, just because Crawford's missed some time. Isaiah, he would have had a stronger case if he stayed with the Celtics the whole year or one team the whole year, I feel like. And when that happens next year, I feel like he will be in the running for this award. Um, moving on, who's your coach of the year?
I gotta go with Steve Kerr. He was in his first year, he did so much with that team, and that Golden State team was one of the best regular season teams of all time, and it's his first freaking year. So, major props to him, and you could just see the difference on the court with him coaching instead of Mark Jackson. I really do like Bud. Um, and he probably did more with less in a sense. And that Atlanta team isn't as talented as the Warriors. Uh, Yet they also had a great. I mean, they ran away with the East, so major props to him too. But I got to go with Kerr just because of his mark in history and for the regular season.
Kerr's a really good choice. I feel like he's probably going to win this year. Personally, I feel like Mike Budenholzer is my winner, just because I feel like most people thought the Warriors were a good team and they needed someone to revitalize their offense, which is exactly what Kerr did, and he kept the defense that Jackson established there. Um, and he did some great things. Kerr did, by basically telling David Lee, "Hey, we're going to bench you. Sorry." After missing some time early in the year and Draymond playing so well, he justified that by saying Draymond has to be the starter, and that was
Iggy.
and benching Iggy too, which these guys have massive egos, and he came in first year and basically told an established player like Iggy, we we would do better if you came off the bench, and he bought into that, and everyone did, and the way they share the ball, they're one of the most exciting teams in the league. Budenholzer, feel like everyone talks about how he's from the Spurs, but and they kind of takes away the credit. I feel like he's done a great job, obviously, because they don't really have any superstars. When you talk about Jeff Teague and Paul Millsap being their best players, there's no one that a casual fan will look to and say, oh, the Atlanta Hawks, I want to see this guy tonight. They don't really have any player like that. But the coaches come in and established a system where they move the ball around and they prioritize spacing and shooting, and they're very unselfish, all of them. They love playing together collectively, and they kind of tailed off at the end of the season, but for the most part, I mean, they were the best team in the East, and well, until the Cavs at the end. But for the most part in the season, they were the best team. They ran away with the first seed. And I have to ask, did anyone really think that was possible? Did anyone think that they were a title contender? And I mean, right now, I think we would say that they're not a strong title contender as much as like maybe the Cavs or the Warriors or the Spurs, but they are in the conversation. That's a lot more than what we had thought at the beginning of the year. So I think he delivers a lot of credit. Plus, I want to add to the fact Budenholzer had to take over GM duties after Danny Ferry, that whole fiasco. Um, so he had added responsibility, and he did a great job.
Yeah, great answer, and I agree with a lot of what you're saying. But what about Popovich? I mean, is he just too good for this award? I mean, he seems like he deserves it every year. Yeah, he rarely ever wins it. I think he's only won it once, if I'm not mistaken. So is Popovich in consideration for you?
Yeah, he's if he's in consideration this year, he's in consideration every year. If we're picking coach of the year objectively, who is the best coach, he should win every year because he is the best coach. And it's like Bill Belichick in the NFL. He doesn't win coach of the year because he's the best coach. You can't pick him every year. It's just they're both the best coaches in their respective sports, and they want to give the award to someone who I feel like has a story, some narrative behind him, behind what he did. Kerr and Budenholzer have that.
That's fair enough. Let's move on to the most improved player award, and personally, I would go Jimmy Butler here because of the jump he made from last year to this year. He became the Bulls' best player, and a lot of people didn't expect that. They thought it would be Rose or Joakim, but Jimmy Butler was carrying this team for the most part. I know he got hurt later in the season, so his numbers. People may have forgotten about him, but this guy was putting 30 every other night. Um, and he hasn't been as good defensively, but offensively he was their best player for most of the season. So I got to go to Jimmy Butler here. What about you?
Jimmy Butler's a really good choice. The reason I would hesitate in picking him is maybe because of his added role offensively. He hasn't been the defensive stalwart that he has been maybe last season. His defensive marks have really taken kind of a fall. So and that I think has to do with the added responsibility on the offensive end, having to carry a lot of the scoring load, having to facilitate, do a lot of things offensively. That maybe his defensive efficiency has gone down this season. So I kind of see that as a not an improvement in one area, but an improvement because no one thought he would be this good offensively. Nobody. So he definitely deserves to be in the running for this. Rudy Gobert deserves to be in the running. I think Gordon Hayward really improved from last season. I mean, a lot of people thought, was he worth that contract?
Yeah.
And he really, in my eyes, he was phenomenal this year. Another guy is Klay Thompson. Did he deserve that contract? Absolutely. Um, personally, for me, I would pick Hassan Whiteside because he was not. I don't think he was even in the league last year. And I don't know if you could give this award to someone who wasn't in the league last year, but personally to me, this guy came out of nowhere. And I mean, he was in the league before in I think like maybe a couple years ago. He was drafted by the Kings, I think, and didn't do well. And then he went, overseas, and he came back, and then he was shopping. He was working at some Target. I don't know what his, but basically the guy came out of nowhere, got a workout with Miami, and then now all of a sudden he's one of the best stories of the year. To me, he gets my vote for sure.
I honestly thought you would say the Stifle Tower. I mean, you were super high on this guy. He's made a huge defensive impact for that team on the Jazz, and they finished with a record of 38 and 44. You know, after the Ennis Cantor trade. I mean, they traded Ennis Cantor knowing that Rudy was going to be this. I don't know if they even knew he was going to be this good, but he turned out to be this good, and that trade looked like it was a great trade now. So I'm surprised you didn't say Rudy.
Yeah, I'm a big fan, as you know, of the Stifle Tower. He definitely he deserves consideration, and I mean, if I was putting this on an official, I think because Whiteside didn't play in the league last year, he can't be in the running for this, but he would be my vote. But if it wasn't Whiteside, it would be Gobert for sure, and then Jimmy Butler. But what are the other awards?
Oh, rookie.
Rookie of the year. I mean, it's pretty simple to me, honestly. I think it's Wiggins for you,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, because I mean, throughout the his advanced stats aren't that good, but he's shown a lot of upside, and you could just see it in his play. Like if you could stomach, the Minnesota offense every night, you actually see a lot of glimpses of Wiggins and what he could provide, and he's just got tremendous ability. And for a rookie, he handled a lot of minutes and a lot of uh, responsibility for this team, and he did a great job. And throughout the whole season, he was consistent. Nikola Mirotic came on late. Nerlens Noel was night and day different from the first half of the year to the second half of the year, especially offensively, and obviously defensively, he's really good. He gets like 4 combined blocks and steals a game. Um, but for me, I think Wiggins was consistent the whole year and should win this award.
Yeah, I completely agree, and yeah, I think that was the first award that we had the same answer for. I think we disagreed on the other three, but this is the one we both agree on, and it's a pretty simple one. I mean, yeah, you're right. He was consistent throughout the whole year. Um, I thought Alfred Payton should be put in this conversation a little bit. He does have more win shares for his team than Wiggins. Um, and he got a triple double I think twice this year. So
In the
that's
same week.
in the same week, right?
Yeah.
So that's pretty impressive. Yeah, I know he can't shoot, and I don't know if he'll ever be able to shoot. That jump shot is pretty ugly. Um, but yeah, I mean, I would go Wiggins probably, and then maybe Peyton or Meritich second or third or
Mm.
something like that. But let's move on to the heated debate of MVP, and this one is tough. I keep going back and forth. Um, I'll let you take a jab at this one first.
Oh. There are three most deserving candidates. I'm gonna start with the first one. The third candidate to me, Chris Paul. After Blake Griffin went down, he notched up his offensive efficiency to unheard of levels, and the Clippers I think are number one in offensive efficiency by the end of the year, and that's in large part due to Chris Paul just orchestrating everything. In my eyes, still the best point guard in the league, and he has been for quite some time. And what he's done to close out the year in a 14-1 record, really just steering that ship, getting ready for the playoffs. I thought Chris Paul did a tremendous job. The second candidate, very close to the first one. I mean, James Harden is just falls short for me because in every metric you find Steph Curry beats him with less minutes and he's more efficient, ultra efficient from the field. So in my eyes, Harden maybe had to carry a bigger load because his team isn't as good, but Curry took this team to unheard of levels. And for a player to be the best player on a team on a historically good regular season team and put up the numbers he did 48% from the field, 44% from three, 90% from the line, 24 points a game, 8 assists, all of these stats in basically 3 quarters of action in most games because they're just blowing out everybody. It just really speaks to how efficient and how he is the engine of the best team in the league, and he deserves consideration for that. He's my MVP.
I was going back and forth on this for pretty much the whole season. I might have even had Anthony Davis early. I had Anthony Davis probably early on in the season, and
Definitely deserves consideration.
um, I went Harden for most of the way, but near the end of the season, I had to give it to Steph Curry, just because he's the best player on the best team. I think you would have to give it to him because I mean we saw this when Nash was with Phoenix. He was the best player on the best team, even though guys like Kobe at the time may have deserved it. So my problem with this award is that it doesn't have a good definition. Like you could say Anthony Davis if you had one definition, if you were just going on stats maybe, and you could say another definition as the most common one is the best player on the best team. So that's why a lot of people were going to vote Stephen Curry, and I think that's why he's going to win the award. You could say that if someone interpreted the MVP award to be the most valuable player, as in the player who carried the team the most, you could say Harden. So I really can't fault you for saying any of those guys, or even LeBron, which we haven't even brought his name up in this conversation, which is kind of ridiculous, and that's just shows how close this MVP race has been this year, and I think it's the closest it's been since over a decade, maybe. I mean, this is the hardest MVP decision we've had for a long time. But in the end, I would probably go Curry just because he made that he upped his game so that Golden State team was just a playoff team to a historically good Warriors team, and Harden made that team from maybe a team who would miss the playoffs without him, but would still be okay, maybe to this second seed, which is pretty impressive. But I mean, there's also not much difference between the second seed and the sixth seed in the West. So I wouldn't fault you for going with any of the guys we've mentioned, but I would probably say Curry. Though if the NBA season lasted another 2 weeks, who knows what my answer would be.
Right. Um, I mean, it's definitely the closest race that I could remember, and it's kind of ridiculous. Like we would just been waiting on one of them to maybe one up each other week to week. Um, I'm not a huge stats guy, but I do look at advanced metrics, and Curry performs really well in most of them. Um, Harden, like to me, like when people say that he shoulders more of a load than Curry does, it just means that he's taking a mediocre team and making it good, right? Curry's making a good team, making it great. They're it's at different levels, but I think they both shoulder about the same, because they're taking their teams to varying degrees of excellence based on how good their teams already are. But I mean, you can't fault Curry for having a good team to begin with. I don't think they would have won 50 games without him. And I know some people have said that, but I don't think so.
No.
I don't think so. They definitely need him. And I mean, it's startling that they actually um, give up more points when he's off the court, and when he's on the court, obviously he's got a tremendous impact per possession basis. But when he's off the court, they actually get outscored, which that makes for if they're a good team, why are they getting outscored? They're also the best defensive team in the league.
Right.
So he really is the catalyst, the engine for that team. And I mean, it's really close, but I also have to point out Steph is just so much fun to watch. I mean, the guy is a video game. He really is. He does stuff like 77 straight threes in practice, man. Are you serious? Like how many did Peja hit?
Like 30.
30, and this guy hit 77, 94 out of 100. I mean, only Steph Curry. Steph Curry with the shot, boy. Only he could do this. I mean, oh man. Anyways.
Well, what about Jimmer? Does Jimmer? No,
All right,
okay.
let's just get to the playoffs now.
Okay. One thing about the two guys who were neck and neck for the MVP race, Harden and Curry, they both improved their games defensively too, which a lot of people didn't
Yes.
expect, and so we give them props.
Especially, I mean, both of them. I mean, we were talking about how much of a joke Curry and Harden were before the season defensively.
Yeah.
They both did an excellent job, and I'm not sure that, but I think Curry was a plus defender in some ratings. I'm not sure what if Harden was, but he was definitely showing way more effort than last year. I mean, he was a turnstile last year, but this season, it's amazing what effort could do.
Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. Um, let's go on to the in the first round of the playoffs. We'll start with the East since it's not as interesting. I mean, honestly, I see three series potentially. People bringing up some brooms like this, possibly three series in the East where I could see the team with home court advantage sweeping the other team. But let's start with the number one seed. We already talked about them a little bit. The Atlanta Hawks. They're facing the Nets, um, who haven't done that badly since the Thaddeus Young trade. They've actually been over 500 since making that trade, and who knows if he'll opt in for next year. But he's definitely been a nice fit next to Brook Lopez, and Brook Lopez is playing some really nice basketball. Offensively, that team looks a lot better from the beginning, but defensively, they're really bad. And they were the only team in the play to make the playoffs with a negative net rating. So I'm gonna say Hawks in five. Who do you have in this first series?
It really depends on which Brooklyn Nets team shows up. I'm not even sure they want to be in the playoffs. I don't know. They're weird. Brook Lopez, like you said, has been playing amazing basketball. Darren Williams has kicked it up a notch. But in the playoffs, I'm just wondering, like, are they just going to revert to isolation, Joe Johnson, hero ball? Who's going to be a leader on that team? Who's going to want to win games? Um, I don't really see that the team doesn't really have any heart to me. They really don't. And Atlanta, I feel like no one's been talking about them. They've kind of been flying under the radar. They could make a semi-strong statement by just sweeping the Nets, just showing, hey, don't forget about us. We'll see whoever is in the second round, like Toronto or whatever. Um, like the Hawks can make a statement with a sweep. I don't see this getting past 5 games.
Yeah, I agree with that. Let's move on to the next round. We have the Raptors versus the Wizards, and I'm gonna go Raptors here just because they have home court advantage. The way I kind of see this series is Washington is a bad offensive team, but they're a good defensive team, and then Toronto is a good offensive team, but not a very good defensive team. And
Give or take.
yeah, so usually defenses win out that matchup, but I just don't like the way the Wizards have been playing this year. I think they actually look worse than they did last year. And Toronto is getting healthy at the right time. And we already mentioned Lou Williams, and he's a difference maker that they have this year than they didn't have last year. So I'm gonna go with um, the Raptors in seven.
I'm gonna agree with that. I'm gonna go with the Raptors. I like the way they play a lot more than the Wizards. I love John Wall. I like Bradley Beal, even though he's a bit overrated. But I don't like their coach, Randy Woodman.
Yeah, no one likes
He's
that.
one of the coaches of two teams in the playoffs who I think they should fire their coach. And I'm gonna talk about the other one when we get to the West. But for the Washington Wizards, the best thing they could do is lose and fire Randy Whitman and move on and get a better coach. Um, they don't like to take threes. They take almost I think some of the most mid range shots in the league. Take a lot of long twos. Just doesn't make any sense to me.
Opposite of Houston.
Opposite of Houston. John Wall's a terrific player, and he could take this series. But he's got a great. This is a great point guard matchup with
Yeah.
him and Kyle Lowry. That's going to be a lot of fun to watch. This might be. I think this will be the most fun series to watch in terms of just how competitive it will be. And let's keep in mind, these teams do not like each other. Paul Pierce is already talking smack. Amir Johnson said that he should get some Viagra. It's awesome. This series, I think, has blockbuster potential in terms of like just get your popcorn out. There's going to be some fighting. There's bad blood already. I think this is going to be a lot of fun to watch. Can't say as much for the other series.
Right. No, I love that. I mean, that's what makes the playoffs. I mean, that's why what we want to see on TV. Um, let's go talk about the Boston Celtics and the Cavaliers real quick. We'll make it quick. I'm just gonna say Cavs in four. They're on a mission. LeBron's on a mission. They would want the extra rest after getting done with the Celtics. And the Celtics are a good feel good story. No one thought they would make the playoffs. Isaiah helped them there. Brad Stevens has solidified himself as one of the next up and coming great coaches in the league. So there's a lot of good stuff going on with the Celtics. Other than they might get a lower pick than a lot of the fans may have wanted. Um, But yeah, I mean the Cavs are on a mission here. I'm going Cleveland in four.
Yeah, ditto everything you said. Celtics don't have enough shooting on their team to threaten the Cavs. Cavs in four.
Yeah. Thank God that was quick. Made it painless.
Sorry, Boston.
um, let's go with the Bulls and the Bucks. And you know, the Bucks are six seed, but they're one of the worst six seeds I've seen in recent memory. Even though they finished I think 500. Um, but since getting Michael Carter Williams, that team hasn't been that good. They've been below 500. The shooting on that team is horrific. Brandon Knight was one of their better shooters. He averaged two threes a game, and they don't have that anymore. So there's just not many spacing. They try to use Michael Carter Williams as a post player, kind of like what Jason Kidd used Sean Livingston as back in Brooklyn, as like a post up point guard, and it works. But if you don't have any shooters around him, it doesn't look as good. So the Bucks team, to me, might get swept also, and I think they might be one of the worst. I think they might be the worst playoff team in this year's playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, I have to give them credit. Jason Kidd took a 15-win team, got them to 41 wins.
Yeah.
That's a huge drastic improvement. So kudos to them. They're a very young team, and Kidd has said that they just need reps in the playoffs, and this is going to be a learning experience for them. I think I'm going to say Chicago in five. I think there'll be a spirited performance thrown in there by the Bucks. This is a nice regional rivalry. They're like 40 minutes away from each other, so there's some history there. I'm really excited to see Giannis Antetokounmpo, Greek freak. He's very young. He's 20 years old, and see how he does in the playoffs. A very young team. I I mentioned to you when that trade went down for Michael Carter Williams that I don't know what the Bucks were doing. Um, and he hasn't improved his shooting. He's still one of the least efficient shooters in the league. And Brandon Knight, I mean, he was right there. And he didn't like him enough, and he traded him off, and hasn't helped the team. So we'll see what happens to them next year with Jabari Parker back,
Yeah.
and maybe some other add-in reinforcements. But this is just, to me, I think Chicago will probably get them done in like maybe 4 or 5. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about the Western Conference. Finally, the good stuff. The Warriors are going to face the Pelicans after pretty much that Game 7 type feeling to the Pelicans Spurs game, where the Pelicans needed to win out in order to make the playoffs, and they did work, and they made San Antonio look a lot weaker than they've been playing before that. But the Warriors have been the best team by far this year, and I'm gonna go with Warriors getting the job done. Even though I could see Anthony Davis winning a game or two just on his own, because Draymond Green and Andrew Bogut might have some trouble guarding Anthony Davis, and that's saying something since both of these guys have been in the defensive player of the year.
Oh, we forgot to talk about that.
Oh my God, we forgot to talk about defensive player of the year.
All right, we'll talk about it.
Let's talk about it right now.
Okay?
Let's talk about it right now. My vote is Draymond Green. He's just been a beast for Golden State. I know a lot of people are saying DeAndre Jordan, um, but I got to go with Draymond Green and the impact he's had for that team defensively. He could guard any position from 1 to 4 and 1 to 5 actually, and another candidate you could say is Andrew Bogut, but he hasn't been healthy the whole year. So I would go with consistency over that, even though Bogut is also very valuable. So I'm gonna go with Draymond Green.
Yeah, we are talking about deep defensive player. Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Well, it comes down to three guys. In terms of perimeter lockdown defending, Kawhi Leonard is the premier perimeter defender in the game. So he deserves consideration. I think he has like a 3.8 steal percentage and like a 1 point something block percentage. It's like there's only 4 people in history to put up those kind of marks. So Kawhi's doing outstanding work defensively. Um, Draymond Green, as you mentioned, he's the anchor of that defense. And that says a lot because Bogut is by far the best rim protector in the game. he's better than Rudy Gobert, who a lot of people think is the best rim protector in the game. Now, Bogut actually, per a lot of metrics, has been doing way more work. Not way more, but more work in terms of rim protection. And those two players have been the main reason why they're number one defensive team. But really, it's Draymond Green with their ability to switch constantly and have him be able to guard multiple positions. It allows them to really just basically just you know to shut anyone down, and it's really cool to see because you see Draymond Green, he doesn't care if he's guarding Chris Paul or Anthony Davis. He takes the challenge every night. He's a tough nosed defender, and opponents are shooting 39% against him. So he's my vote. It's really close, really, between him and Kawhi Leonard for me, and I mean, Bogut is really deserving because he's doing a fantastic job on rim protection. Let's get to go to the series now. Um, the Pelicans are I thought that they did a great job against the Spurs to get in here, and now they have to face the Warriors, and that kind of sucks. But this is a great learning experience for them. They happen to be the other team that needs to fire their coach. I talked about Randy Whitman and Monty Williams need to get fired for these teams to get better. So hopefully New Orleans brass understands that. Maybe they get swept and they realize Monty Williams is not our guy. But I mean, they just need to get Anthony Davis some reps in the playoffs. He could win a game by himself, but I mean, it's a tall task to go up against Draymond Green, and then you got Bogut protecting the rim, and then you got the defense on the other end has to deal with Clay and Steph bombing threes all day long. I think it's going to be a sweep because the Warriors are just that much better, and I question whether they could just keep up with them. But if you take this series back to New Orleans, Anthony Davis could win you a game, maybe.
Yeah, I mean he's a beast, and I honestly think he could maybe win in 2 games on his own, but that's maybe a stretch. You were pointing out that Monty Williams should be fired, and I kind of agree with that. Tom Benson said that if the Pelicans made the playoffs, that he wouldn't fire him. So
Oh.
that's just not how good teams function. I mean, the Warriors made the playoffs with Mark Jackson, and they fired him for Steve Kerr, and look where they are now.
And I was against that. I was against that decision. I thought Jackson deserved maybe another year. I was dead wrong. Kerr is much better. So yep.
Yeah, so sometimes it is best to fire your coach, even though he got you to the playoffs. Is our point. Um, but yeah, I'm gonna go with Warriors in 4. I think they're also on a mission, just like the Cavs are, and I think they'll get take care of business. So let's move on to the Trailblazers and the Grizzlies, and both of these teams are kind of stumbling into the playoffs. Portland's had a lot of injuries with Wes Matthews. Um, Batum kind of got hurt near the end. Um, but CJ McCollum started to pick it up near the end, and that was a good sign for them. He's finally playing like they hoped he would play, and he's probably their best player off the bench. And this year, unlike the other years before, they actually have a bench, thanks to Chris Kaman and Steve Blake. So I think this Portland Trailblazers team could look good in the future if they're able to resign their key free agents like Lamarcus and Wes Matthews after this year. But this year, it's really tough. I'm gonna go with the Grizzlies, even though they've been struggling too. The Grizzlies actually have home court advantage, even though they have the lower seed, and you could thank the NBA for their brilliant divisional rules or whatever. But yeah, there's no really point in Portland having that divisional title. It doesn't guarantee him home court advantage, and in fact is kind of hurting the Clippers because they have to face the Spurs. So honestly, the Portland Trailblazers should be the 6th seed, but thanks to the NBA, they're the 4th seed. Um, but anyways, I think the Grizzlies are going to take this just because they're more healthy, and when the Grizzlies tend to pick it up come playoff time, you've seen them last year. They were the eighth. They were, one year they're the 8th seed and they beat the Spurs. So they pick it up during the playoffs, and I expect nothing different this year.
Yeah. I really feel bad for this Portland team. They suffered so many injuries. not like Oklahoma City status, but they've suffered a lot of injuries. Batum got hurt at the finale of the season too, so I wonder how he's doing. But this team, I mean, if they had Wes Matthews healthy, they would have had a great shot to beat the Grizzlies. But I feel like they just don't have enough. I think this will go to six games because the Grizzlies do struggle to get some offensive consistency game in and game out, and the Blazers are much improved defensively this year. And I feel like Damian Lillard could win a couple games on his own because he lives for these moments. He's such a clutch player. There's a great point guard matchup with him and Mike Conley. Um, I don't know if LaMarcus Aldridge could guard Zebo, so you're probably going to have to guard Gasol and have Lopez deal with Zebo because in the past they've shown that just he's bad matchup. Zebo's a bad matchup for him. He would best be served to try to get him in foul trouble as often as possible, as early as possible. Portland has a chance in this series, but I feel like because of the injuries and because of how banged up they are, this is just not their year. And I mean, even if they get out of the series, they have to go up against a much superior Golden State team. They don't have all of their gun fully loaded, so to speak. And I feel like they should do obviously they should try to win the series, but I feel like they're going to fall short in 6 games, and they'll look to next season with making two huge decisions, as you said, Wes Matthews and LaMarcus Aldridge. But I think Grizzlies way too tough for them, and they'll win in 6.
Yeah, I mean they lost their best defender in Wes Matthews, and that was just to me the turning point in their season. Let's talk about the Houston Rockets and the Dallas Mavericks. We have a Texas showdown, and
Bang
you,
bang.
you know it was kind of when I first saw this matchup, it kind of reminded me back when James Harden said that Chandler Parsons was a role player. I felt like this was Parsons' chance to get back at them. So I hope he has a good series. But I'm gonna go still with the Rockets and probably 6 games because Rick Carlisle is a good coach and he's gonna find strategies that work for them. You know, he might do the hack somebody because they Houston has some pretty bad free throw shooters, including Dwight. So you know, Carlisle is a smart coach. No one thought that Dallas would take San Antonio to 7 games and last year, and that was probably the Spurs' most difficult matchup on the road for a championship, and you know it turned out to be Dallas. So I think Dallas is gonna make Houston work for this series. And also another thing to point out is that Houston, I mean James Harden, as a Houston Rocket, has struggled in the playoffs. The last 2 years, his field goal percentage has gone down drastically come playoff time. So I think that's another uh, key thing to point out. Although Dallas isn't really that good defensively. So who do you have in the series and in how many games?
This is a great regional showdown or state showdown with Dallas and Houston. And Mark Cuban already talking smack, saying Harden should be the MVP because the team is not good, and that's just Cuban being Cuban. Um, so I mean, I think this series actually will go to 7 games. Dallas is a proven team. They have got a lot of veteran players, and I think they could ratchet it up. And if they could take the Spurs to 7 games, I think they could take Houston to 7 games. I think Houston will get out of it um, because they have a superior defense and they could rely on James Harden late in games to carry them. But I think this is going to be one of the most entertaining matchups in the first round, and there could be some bad blood here, and I'm gonna love to see that. And I think Dallas does have a chance to win. I mean, it's not these teams in the West. They're none of them are like Portland could beat Memphis. You know, not the Pelicans can't beat the Warriors, but all these other teams could beat the
It wouldn't be
superior
shocked.
teams. It would not be a surprise at all to see Dallas win. But I'm gonna go with Houston in 7.
Let's talk about the last series, and I think this one is to me the most fun, even though I have it ending less than some of the other ones. I think I'm gonna say Spurs in 6, um, but I still think it's gonna be more fun to watch than some of those other ones, just because we have seen this matchup before in the playoffs, and the Spurs kind of wrecked the Clippers. and that was also I remember that series, the last game, game four. Eric Bledsoe came in on for the Clippers, and he almost won that game for them near the end, and they don't have him anymore. And this Clippers bench has been pretty bad for the most part. If you take out Jamal Crawford, Spencer Hawes has been disappointing. Austin Rivers hasn't done all that great. It really starts and ends with Jamal on the bench for the Clippers. And I think that's gonna hurt them when the Spurs you could bring any guy off the bench and he could go off. So that's another whole dynamic that the Spurs have, and I think they're playing. Both teams are playing great ball. Near the end of the season, the Spurs have finished 11-1 near the end of the year, and the Clippers finished 14-1. So this unlike the Memphis Grizzlies Trailblazer series where both teams are ending slowly their regular season off kind of slowly. Both teams in this series are ending red hot, and that's why I'm mostly gonna watch this series of any other series.
Yeah, you are right. By far, the best matchup in this first round in either conference. This shouldn't even happen, right? You can't get these are two of the best teams in the league, and it's in the first round of playoffs. This shouldn't happen, and it's because of stupid divisional rules. But we are treated to something that I think this is the best 3-6 matchup I could ever remember. Or first round matchup. It could be. I think the Spurs will I think you make a very good point about the bench. I think that will be a huge reason why the Spurs will triumph over the Clippers. And this is a huge series for the Clippers because they are one of the most hated teams in the league, and they have huge expectations placed on them. And Chris Paul, he hasn't been. Has he been to a conference final? Has he been
No.
to? No. So, I mean, he looks like he's on a mission. And I think he could have incredible games against the Spurs, and I think he is going to be he's going to have to play like an MVP to beat the Spurs. I think he's going to have to make Tony Parker his B in this series. Okay, he's going to have to take it to him every night, and I think he will do that. But I feel like Pop is too smart. He's going to go hack a DeAndre every game. He's going to try to make Doc take him out. They don't really have any capable bigs that could protect the rim, so you can't put Spencer Hawes against them. Big Baby Davis. They don't have a good bench. Um, the the Spurs just have too much. I think, but I think this series is going to be extremely competitive. Has that bad blood because everyone hates the Clippers, and I'm really excited for this series. I'm going to go with Spurs in 7.
So you have Spurs winning on the road.
Yes, I do.
Okay. You were mentioning Haka DeAndre, and I just was looking back on his game earlier with San Antonio this year, and Popovich fouled him a lot, and he shot 28 free throws in one game and made only 10. So that's shooting at 35% rate. So I'm pretty sure we're gonna see that at one point in this series.
I think that's actually that might be something that could derail the enjoyment of this series because a lot of people are going to be tuning into this series, and Popovich doesn't care. He is going to hack a DeAndre. He's going to do it 30 times. He's going to send him to a line as much as he can until Doc is like, fine, we have to take him out. He's the only rim protector they have. And I think a lot of people are going to be complaining about this on Twitter and social media because they're just going to. This is not fun. It's not fun to watch.
Can I play devil advocate real quick on that topic on the free throws?
Mm-hmm.
To some extent, those are the most exciting free throws to watch because you don't know if they're going in or not. They're not like regular free throws.
No, that's a good point, but most of the time they're not going in. So if you really want, you got to get a 50% free throw shooter. DeAndre is terrible. He shoots like what 40%, 38%. What does he shoot? It's just terrible. So he's looking up right now, but I could see stretches of these games getting really bad. I hope as a fan, I hope Popovich won't do it too much, but I know he will. He shoots 39.7%, folks. That is so bad. It's terrible bad. But yeah, we both agree. You got Spurs in 6. I got Spurs in 7. This is going to be a great matchup, and I can't wait for the playoffs, man. They start tomorrow, and we're going to do another pod after every round, breaking down every matchup, talking about recapping the first round, and I'm excited.
Yeah, it should
And
be fun.
yep. All right. Well, signing off. This is Shaheen Koigani with Ravneet Singh. Peace.
See you.